Today I have another novel to talk about. This is another Andrea Newman, which I had to read on the iPad Mini because it's not available to me in book form. This one is called A Sense of Guilt, and I just read a previous one, which was called what? An Evil Streak. A sense of guilt and an evil streak. An evil streak was the last one. Now, I've gone on about this Andrea Newman before. Andrea Newman is a British writer, was a British writer. She died 6 years ago at 19, at 2019, at the age of 85. She's, a 20th century woman, basically. And had quite a string of books that became TV series on British television. And these are all domestic love stories. There seems to be a theme in the three I'm familiar with. I watched an adaptation of A Banquet of Barbed Wire on YouTube, but I have not read the book yet. I have the book available to me, but I have not read it yet. But anyway, in that one, A Sense of Guilt, and the one I just read, A Sense of Guilt, and An Evil Streak, there's seems to be these running things through each of them. They're all domestic. They're all like love melodramas, and babies coming into the picture. Pregnancy is a problem. It's a joyful notion to some people, but it's a problem to other people. We have abortion coming into the story quite a bit. The stories. We have age differences and the men, older men and younger women, something that is not unfamiliar to me. The thing about that is we think of the dirty old man, and the dirty old man, I guess there are dirty old men who were just sort of lust filled, whatever. But there are other men who are just trying to bond with someone, I guess. And it's hard to get yourself in the proper category. Like, okay, we categorize people all the time, and it's hard to tell within yourself when you've slipped into this other age group what is forbidden, what you're not supposed to be doing anymore, what is appropriate to your age, and what other people are appropriate to your age, especially if something becomes available to you and you can have it, even though it's somehow not appropriate and somehow bad and dirty of you to have it. So what we have in the beginning of the story is it's basically a story of two couples and their kind of attachments, their previous marriages, actually. So we have Richard and Helen, who are married. Richard works as a probation officer, and Helen is an artist who mostly does sort of abstract things. And we have Richard's very old friend for 20 years, Felix. And we have Felix's wife, Elizabeth. So Richard and Helen have a daughter. Actually, it's really Helen's daughter, and she's, just like 20. And she has had that from a previous marriage to somebody named Carrie, who comes into the picture later on, but much later on. So Felix, in this other couple, Felix and and Elizabeth. Felix is a writer. He writes a series of thrillers. Actually, he had a serious novel at one point, and then he started sort of just started writing thrillers to make a living, and he does pretty well. He has married a somewhat older woman, 10 years older than him. He has married someone who was his editor in the past and is now his wife, and I guess still is his editor. So they have no children. So Felix has a reputation of of Lothario, someone who goes around and has lots of affairs. He has an apartment separate from his home in London where he writes, and Elizabeth doesn't even know where that is. And that's also where he can bring his lovers and so forth. So all this is fine until it turns into Sally, the daughter of Helen and the stepdaughter of Richard, his old friend, who he ends up having an affair with. And then come some of the elements I've mentioned before come into the story, and all hell breaks loose. So I like these stories. I'm kind of like, what the hell with humans, like, all these humans, all any story we read about humans has this conflict in it, and stories we see about animals, whatever, have humanist sort of anthropomorphic conflicts sewn into them to make us interested in the story, I guess. So I've been reading these novels, and I like these novels, and I like sort of romantic BBC shows I've been watching as well, and so I seem to be switching off of the big picture political things, which is a horror show all in itself, and I think I'm going to make a separate video about my political opinions of the weird moment that we're in. But I seem to get more enjoyment right now out of reading these stories of people in their domestic relationships, in their relationships with their friends, in their sexual activities, which all this other stuff comes into anyway. All the conflicts, things of jealousy and ownership and dominance, men dominating women or women dominating men in the way they can, and all that stuff. So all that is to say that I really like this novel quite a bit, and there is actually an adaptation of that, a television adaptation of that is on that I found on OK@.ru, which is sort of a international video sharing thing that has more bootleg stuff on it, frankly. So I'm probably going to watch that tonight. Start watching it tonight. It's a series. But yeah, so I really like these stories, and I'm going to end up reading more Andrea Newman novels. And this is what interests me right now. And other elements of the story that are quite interesting. We have Inge, Inge, who is the ex-wife of Richard, and who Richard has two sons from. And Ingrid is German, so she's not really a British person. She's a German woman who lives in England, and she is carrying a torch for Richard. She wants Richard back. She expects to get Richard back. She wants Richard to come back. She is completely heartbroken all the time about Richard. He is sort of attached to the whole scene because he has these sons who now are turning older teens, so he's less needed on that scene. But Inge really wants him back, so he's often called away from his house to Inge's house. Like there's a scene in the beginning where she says there's a gas leak. Come and help. There's a gas leak, and there's not really a gas leak, but he has to go anyway, and take care of Inge. So that's another element of it. And Felix gets all kind of wrapped up in all this stuff. Felix and his sexual adventurism. As I said, there is this age gap stuff that goes on with Felix and Sally. So, and this interesting thing about this ex-wife that wants him. So this situation where there is someone he Richard cares about Inge, but he doesn't want to go back to a relationship with her, at least initially. I'm not going to say what happened in case anybody reads this book, which I don't expect anybody to. It's, this is stuff from 50 years ago. This book is from 1988, and the TV thing was in 1990. So all this stuff is way, way in the past anyway. And I guess I don't know how popular they were anyway. But so, you're probably not going to read these novels. So I guess it doesn't matter. And, that's kind of the way my channel is. I talk about things that people are not interested in. And I guess that's why I'm not one of the channels that whatever they go on and have anything to say, they get a couple thousand views. I guess I'm not that charming, so I think I'll just kind of leave it at that. To say that A Sense of Guilt was really good and it really interested me. I really liked it. I plowed through it. I really like these suspense, intrigue, melodramatic love stories that Andrea Newman has produced and given us over the years. So, I'm glad I ran into all of that, and well, we'll see what comes up next. I kind of keep waiting for the new Cory Doctorow book to come to my library, and it came out last month, but they're getting awfully slow in getting their copies of it. But there's a couple other things that I'm looking into that I might read, but I don't know. Things are kind of sometimes they feel like they're slowing to a crawl, or I'm losing interest in kind of everything or whatever. But so thank you for watching.